You know what those rankings to me are? This is what I would do with those rankings. I would take them up, take them. Kristen's rank right here.
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
All everybody's rankings. I don't care about. They're just rankings.
appreciate you tuning in to Birds 365. Jeff Kerr with you. I'm Jordan McConnell. He's Jeff Kerr. Here's my buddy joining us via the stream. What are you working out already? You got a muscle shirt on this early in the morning? Maaddi, how much, what would you do, 250 about 10 times already this morning? No, we're not hearing Rob. Rob, you got to take it off mute there, brother. Now say something. We're having trouble connecting with Rob. Maaddi, is he not hearing us? You got me, Maaddi, man?
I hear you.
There it is.
I hear you. Finally.
Mute can absolutely kill you.
Listen, I'm out of the loop, man. I'm living, look at this. I'm in chaos here in Florida. We got nothing set up. We bought a new house, Joe, right, Jeff? We bought a new house. We closed on it a month ago. And we come in, brand new construction, and you know what the wife does, right? Let's remodel the whole thing.
Oh.
Like literally brand new construction. Everything is new, but let's walk in and let's redo the whole kitchen. So I'm living in a sea of boxes. Everything's a mess. We just dropped the kids off at school. They're going to a new school, and life is different, man. It's different out here.
And oh, by the way, it's probably pretty hot down in Florida because it's hot up here in Philadelphia. Oh, yeah. Where in Florida?
Near Tampa. I'm in a town called Odessa, so I'm about 15, 20 minutes from Tampa. So
very cool.
It rains every day, apparently.
That's Florida for you. So Odessa, does that mean you're just going to go to Tampa's practice every day from here on in, since you're not far out of town? They got a pretty good team called the Bucks there. Or are you going to be doing the whole Florida thing? Where do your responsibilities lie now that you're a Floridian?
Actually, I'll be coming up to do about 6 to 7 Eagles games, but I wasn't going to do the preseason this year. NFL has this thing where you got to have be mandated the vaccine, and I'm still in the protocol right now. I still got to go through that. I got 2 more weeks or whatever it may be till they actually let you in the press box and let you in their practices. So I'll be ready to go for the for the NFL opener for the Dallas-Tampa game, and then I'll be at the Eagles home opener coming up in September. So we got a long way to go before then. There's a lot of football, a lot of things to be played out, a lot of decisions to be made before that happens.
Yeah, Rob, I'm kind of excited to see you covering the NFL now. You get to enter our territory a little bit. You get to see everything from, I guess not the, what's the word I'm looking for? The midnight green colored glasses. You get to see the entire league. It's a lot of fun. I will say that.
Yeah, and you know, I've been doing that for a while now, but I've also had Eagles and Phillies responsibilities. So now I take look at that. I take the Phillies off my plate. I focus on the NFL, and they go on a roll. They get good all of a sudden. They're in first place. And I said this though: if it's going to be a red October, I'm going to be back in Philly. I don't care what I got to do. I'll be there for some playoff games. But yeah, it's fun to be able to focus on the entire league, to actually watch some of these. Like I'm sitting there watching these preseason games, and everybody complains about preseason football. It's meaning, you know what? Preseason football is better than no football, right? I'd rather be watching preseason football than no football at all. So the other day, and I'm still going through. You know, you get the NFL Game Pass, and you can watch all the games live preseason, and then you can watch the replays condensed and all that. So I'll go back and watch every single one. I may not watch the third and fourth quarters with some of these fourth and fifth string guys, though.
What did you get when you rewatched the Eagle game? Game number 1, again, only preseason, but the first Nick Sirianni game ever, so you might make a little bit more attention to it than usual. What do you think of what you saw out of the Birds week 1?
I'm going to sound a lot like Nick, guys, and say crisp first half, sloppy second half, but I don't really care so much about the deep reserves and the guys who aren't going to be making the team or on the bubble guys in the fourth quarter and the third quarter. I thought there were some good things that we saw early on. Jalen Hurts, to me, did look like he had command of the offense. I was surprised, actually. I heard some people nationally, not locally in Philly, but nationally. I heard Todd Haley, former coach, former offensive coordinators, compare Hurts and Flacco. Hurts coming out and Flacco coming in and throwing a touchdown pass and putting up nice numbers, comparing them to when he had Matt Leinart in Kurt Warner. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Joe Flacco's been a Super Bowl MVP. He's no Kurt Warner. Okay, so you're not thinking about benching Jalen Hurts for Joe Flacco because Todd Haley benched Matt Leinart for Kurt Warner. That it's not a similar comparison at all. So I like what I saw out of Jalen. There was the one deep ball to Quez that he probably would like to throw again and connect with him on that. And there was a couple drops for him, but he had a nice command of the offense, and he's come along. I'm a guy who's been a lot higher on Jalen than I think a lot of people. And I feel he deserves every opportunity, guys, to prove this year whether or not he can be QB1 in 2022. For me, that's the number one priority coming out of 21 is to find out about Jalen Hurts. Above all else, you have to know if he can be that guy.
Rob, I can't figure this out just from a national perspective. I don't know why people don't like Jalen Hurts like they did. You saw the Chris Sims rankings. You've seen the PFF rankings. It's very frustrating that they're basically writing this guy off, and they really haven't seen. I swear they just watched Week 17, that first half, and that was it. Like, okay, we watched Sunday Night Football. This guy's not any good. I mean, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on why do you think nationally people just don't like this guy?
You know what those rankings to me are? This is what I would do with those rankings. I would take them. Kristen's rank right here.
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
Everybody's rankings. I don't care about. They're just rankings, right? I have rankings. You have rankings. Jody can put rankings out. So whether it's Chris Sims, whether it's PFF, I don't care about that. They are designed, right? That rankings, and you know this, Jeff. Rankings are designed to stimulate conversation, to get people talking, to get whatever, depending on your platform, to get clicks, to get conversation, to get calls. It is what it is. To not have Jalen Hurts on the top 40, I thought was absolutely asinine. To have guys in there higher than him, ranked high, who haven't played, it doesn't make sense to me. I think what the national media looks at it, and they look at it superficially, right? You look at it from you're not as close to the situation, so you look at it from behind. You always analyze the quarterback; he's unproven. You look at the head coach; he's a rookie head coach. A lot of people don't expect him to be a head coach this quickly, this soon. He wasn't on anybody else's radar. He didn't get any opportunities or any interviews anywhere else. So automatically, the Eagles are a bottom 30 team, and their quarterback is somebody that you're going to look to replace. So anytime people want to talk about Deshaun Watson, you talk about the Eagles and whoever else it may be that could replace them. I want to see Jalen Hurts get that opportunity, and I think he can surprise people.
All right, Mr. Maaddi, last year when you were just the Eagles beat reporter, not the national star that you've become, you watch the Eagles week in and week out. If I had told you that Justin Peters was not going to be back with the Eagles, that Jeff Lurie wasn't going to extend his hand to his friend again to keep him in the National Football League and on the Eagles offensive line, you would have thought that meant the end of Justin Peters' career, right? Not the fact that he signed yesterday with the Chicago Bears. I thought Jason Peters was just flat out done last year. I guess it's because there's a dearth of talent in the National Football League. Did you see it coming, Jason Peters signing with someone else? And is it going to play well or end well in Chicago?
I don't know how much he has left, but I'll tell you what, it's familiarity, right, Jody? There's familiarity there. Juan Castillo, offensive line coach in Chicago, had Jason Peters in Philly. And that this is what the NFL, when you get into August, when you get into a bind, when you get into the season and you have a situation where you need a position, you have someone go down or there's a big need, you reach out for someone you know. You reach out for someone you're familiar with. So Jason Peters is not going to go in there and get destroyed, but he's obviously not the guy he was 10 years ago. He's not the guy he was 5 years ago. I'm just happy I don't have to hear false starts on Jason Peters. I don't have to hear. There's specific callers who will call me every week and say, "I can't wait. Why is Jason Peters here?" So I don't have to hear that anymore about Jason Peters being in. But you know what? One day he'll have that number up in the rafters, and there'll be an Eagles Wall of Fame, and Jason Peters will do like Donovan and say, "Number 71, always love you."
How much did you smile when you saw Doug Peterson with Carson Wentz this past weekend? Yeah, we heard that. I'll call it BS, fracture beyond repair. I'm like, I knew that wasn't true.
So fracture beyond I think John Marks put this out there. He said, caption this. And I was like, fracture beyond repair, according to a source who wants you to believe that false narrative, because that's what it was. And I kept telling people, anyone who would listen, that it was a false narrative that was being spread, that there was no – Doug told me himself. Carson said it. I don't know how much more I needed to tell people, like, listen, you could go get your sources. I don't care who they are, and I know who they are, and I don't care why they're spreading this falsehood. Well, actually, I know why they're doing it, because they want to create that rift to justify trading. Well, whatever. We moved on past that. But, yeah, you know what, Jeff? It made me smile. I kind of felt like just a little vindication. Like, I told y'all, I told you. There was nothing between Doug and Carson. And Doug didn't just tell me this. I believe he did a podcast with John Clark. He did a podcast with John Clark sometime over the summer, and he said the same thing there. So there was never a fracture beyond repair, according to a source who wants you to believe that false garbage.
Rob, I know you had a pretty good relationship with Carson Wentz, as a matter of fact. Now that you're covering the national beat, that lets you keep up the relationship with Carson Wentz, and you got to know how he's recovering from the surgery that he had on his foot. Not in a walking boot, already at practice. You got an idea? Is either direct quote from Carson or just reporting from team information as to whether Carson's going to be ready week 1 for the Colts?
From Carson himself, I only reached out to him last week with just an encouraging message, just to, after the surgery, keep your head up and stuff like that. And he was thankful and grateful for that. But we didn't talk anything about how far along he is. But I do see the fact that he's in out of the walking boot. To me, it suggests that he's coming along further and better than people anticipated. But initially, when he got hurt, right, it was a 5 to 12 week window, Jody. I've never heard in football or sports a 5 to 12 week window. And I liken that to when we moved into this house and I wanted to buy, we tried to buy a couple of refrigerators, and they gave me a 5 to 12 week window on a refrigerator. How is it 5 to 12 weeks on a refrigerator? And you know what I ended up doing? I bought 5. And the first 3 that showed up, we kept. The other 2, they still haven't come, so we canceled those orders. But I do think he's trending closer towards the 5 than the 12.
So when the Colts traded for Carson Wentz, obviously they had in mind franchise quarterback, but they were a pretty good team with Phillip Rivers last year. And Phillip Rivers had a pretty good year for them. Do they feel their ceiling with Carson Wentz is going to be that much higher? Or if, Carson Wentz can at least become the 2019 version? I mean, what do you expect out of him in Indianapolis, Rob?
Well, if it's 2017 Carson Wentz, the Indianapolis Colts are Super Bowl contenders. If it's December 2019 Carson Wentz, remember when he had Josh Perkins and Deontay Burnett, I'm forgetting all these guys' names. Greg Ward and all those guys, and carried them into the playoffs, then they're a Super Bowl contender. But if he's 2020 Carson Wentz, then they're a middle of the pack to a 7-10, 6-11 team. So I think a lot depends on what Carson Wentz looks like, and I believe in a system with Frank Reich, with some guys, some protection up front, with stability up front, with some weapons that he has, he will look a lot more like the 17 and the December 19 version than the 2020 version.
Rob, debating around the country today about how to handle rookie quarterbacks. All the Sports Center shows and talk shows and the like, talking about what Justin Fields looked like, what Zach Wilson looked like, what Trey Lance looked like, what Mac Jones looked like. And Philadelphia, you got to look at Mac Jones today in a practice between the Eagles and the Patriots. So the debate comes back up again. How best to handle your rookie quarterbacks? I read Peter King this morning, and he talked about the Brady's and the Mahomes and the Rodgers of the world, who all came along slowly, weren't thrown into the deep end of the pool. That was the point he was trying to make. You could just as easily go to Peyton Manning, who started day number 1 and had his acceptance speech at Canton last week. So there is no real true way, tried and true, to say this is the best way to do it. If you're going to make a decision individually as you're a team, what do you have to factor in? If you were a guy in charge of a team this year and you'd use a fairly high first-round draft pick on a quarterback, how would you decide whether he plays week 1, year 2, year 3? How do you think the best way to do it is?
Jody, that's a great question, and that's one that GMs and head coaches and front offices are consistently debating, and I'm going to be writing about that actually tomorrow. But I think each individual case is a different scenario. When you're in San Francisco and you draft Trey Lance, but you have someone capable who took you to a Super Bowl like Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's making a lot of money, that affords you the opportunity to bring him along a little bit slower because you have someone who you could start and you could be a decent football team. When you look at the Chicago Bears and you have Fields come in there and the way he looked, and I'm not going to get overly excited about any preseason game or what he did, but in a case of Fields with the Chicago Bears, you're not a team that I don't think the Bears are going to be a contender this year. I think you can give him an opportunity to play early or even play right away. Wilson in New York with the Jets, again, a rookie head coach, defensive-minded head coach, a team that shouldn't be going. I don't anticipate they're going to be a contender at all. I look at the teams that aren't contenders, and I say let the younger guys, let the rookie quarterbacks play early. Let them learn. Let them grow. Let them suffer their lumps with the rest of the team, because you don't want your quarterback, while everyone else is out there taking a beating and they're losing and they're learning the new system and the new culture, and he's in the QB room or he's on the sidelines and he's not participating and he's not taking part in that. And now maybe a small part of him thinks, hey, if I was out there, this could be different, or I don't know what it feels like for me to experience failure. All my teammates are experiencing failure, but I'm not. So I want my rookie quarterback on a bad team to be out there right away. And I would take my time with somebody like Trey Lance in San Francisco.
Rob, you know how most successful college coaches do in the NFL. It's not very good. And, we've seen the Steve Spurrier experiment. That didn't even last 2 years. Chip Kelly, ultimately, he let his ego get in the way. That ended up being a disaster, even though it was off to a strong start.
Wait, Jeff. I thought he invented the game.
That's what I heard. I mean, at Oregon, they use Chip Kelly's concepts now. Didn't you hear that? But he's responsible for the Eagles Super Bowl. I digress. but Urban Meyer, I wanted to bring up here, Rob, and it hasn't been the greatest of starts for him, but he has the one thing that can make him successful, and that's Trevor Lawrence. Overall, what do you expect to see out of Urban Meyer?
Yeah, and when you run down a list of those guys who don't have much success, I think Urban Meyer can be the one who goes the other way, who could have some success in the NFL. And the wild card is, or the key to that is, he's got a franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and that's extremely helpful. Chip didn't have that in Philly, right? But he did have a future Super Bowl winning MVP in Nick Foles, but who went 29-2 1 year with him. But that's a different story. So I think Urban Meyer had some hurdles and some adjustments, and there was the assistant coach situation, and now he's got Tebow in there trying to learn how to play tight end, and that could be, even though that could potentially have been a distraction, I think it's been handled well there. It can work there in Jacksonville, where he is such a big beloved figure and a hero. So that could work there. And he's actually, I believe, and I spoke to Trevor Lawrence in May or maybe June, I forget when it was, and the influence on Trevor Lawrence, I think, could be a positive thing. So I'm excited to see what the Jaguars and what Urban Meyer can do. I don't anticipate that team being more than a 5 or 6 win, but that to go from 1 to 5 or 6 is a nice jump for a franchise like that. And they have a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who I think has all the tools. I love this kid. And he's one. I would play him right now. I don't care what Minshew Mania is doing. I don't care how great he's playing. Trevor Lawrence. Go out there day one. First week you're playing the entire season as long as he's physically able.
They were saying he was plug and play after his rookie year at Clemson, his freshman year. So I expect him to be there day one with the Jags. Agreed, Rob. Had Mike Pereira on one of my national shows last week because I wanted to get his take on the points of emphasis the NFL is laying down this year. The taunting penalty, they're going to be a little bit tougher on it going forward. They thought that it led to a couple of ugly incidents last year. It kind of worries me a little bit that they're making that a point of emphasis, because I don't want the NFL to stand for the no fun league. I like celebration. I like people showing emotion on the field. So it's a fine line the referees have to walk. But Pereira said, Jody, don't even worry about that. The thing you need to keep your eye on is the blocking below the waist outside, that they are going to absolutely be throwing a flag on that. No one is allowed to block below the waist once you get outside the tackle boxes. And he said, there's a lot of that going on in the National Football League. Go back and check the tape. Oh, everybody blocks below the waist on the outside. They're going to crack down on that this year. I did see it flagged a couple of times this weekend in watching as much exhibition football as I did. What do you think of the point of emphasis? I think it's funny that every year nobody talks about it until the game starts. But then when the game starts, oh my God, flags everywhere. Slowing down the game. We're screwed by the referees. It becomes a major talking point 1 or 2 weeks into the season. How big a deal is it going to be early this year?
The taunting, I think, is just laughable. I believe it was a run by Benny LeMay. The Colts, he powered his way through. It might have been like a 14-yard run, carrying guys up the middle. And he just like did something like that, whatever it was. And he gets flagged for it. I'm like, there is no way they can do that in the regular season. And what we see sometimes is these points of emphasis, right, Jody? They become a point of emphasis in the preseason. Right. And as more people start to, we'll all complain about it. We'll write our columns. We'll talk about it. And then as the regular season comes, they'll put that flag in their back pocket. But the tackling, right? I mean, the blocking below the waist, that one I think will be, as Pereira said, will be emphasized more into this season. That's not going to be just a preseason thing. I think that's something that they really want to do away with in the NFL. So the taunting thing should and it better go away. But the tackling, the blocking below the waist is going to be something I think is going to be a legitimate point of emphasis that we got to keep our eye on. And just like everything else, early on in the season, we'll be looking at it, we'll be focused on it, and then come November, December, we'll forget all about it.
Rob, I never asked you on Twitter before about what are your thoughts on the 17-game season, the 14-team expanded playoffs? I know we've had a year of them. I mean, personally, I'm a little biased because it's, I work for one of the broadcast partners, so more games, more money. Overall, though, do you think it's getting to be a little too much, or do you think this is just right?
Hey, more football. We all love football, right? More football is always a good thing. From a selfish perspective, that just prolongs or puts my vacation a little further down the road. I got to wait an extra 2 weeks or whatever it may be. But it's 17 games to me. I don't want to see it go much further. They talked about the 18, right? I think 17 is just right. 3 preseason games is maybe one too many. I'd rather see what a lot of teams are doing now, right? A lot of teams now are doing the joint practices, and not just one time, but 2 joint practices because they have 1 less preseason game. I'd rather have 2 preseason games and 2 or 3 joint practices, because you could do two joint practices with the teams you're playing, and then someone local. Like the Eagles could do Baltimore, they could do the Jets, they could do the Giants, whoever it may be. You're not going to do the Giants because it's in division. But a 17-game regular season, I think, is just right. You don't want guys to get potentially even injuries are such a huge factor in the NFL. And as much as it is who's healthiest or who's the best team, it's who's healthiest at the end of the year. So I'm excited to see it that way. If they were going to spread it out, and remember, when was it? Like the early 2000s, late 90s, they had 2 bye weeks.
93, they had 2 bye weeks.
Was it 90? Yeah, they had. I could actually live with 2 bye weeks, especially as now not the beat guy, but more of a national guy. I could live with 2 bye weeks because I think that'll help teams. Right, we're always going to have our football, but that'll help teams. If that would be for me the only way, you want to go to 18. Give them 2 bye weeks, and they can go to 18.
Rob, let me ask you about a guy that I know you know quite well because you covered him for years, and that's the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid. Goes to the Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Goes last year, gets beat, and beat pretty good, as a matter of fact, by that Brady guy and Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's his mantra coming into this year? He's still got Patrick Mahomes, who is the most talented quarterback in the National Football League, even though Brady got the better of him last year. Still, talent wins out over everything else. They're the favorite to win the AFC again this year, but a couple of good challengers in the Bills and the Browns. What's Andy Reid's message? How do you think he's going to try and get Kansas City back to a 3rd straight Super Bowl?
I got a little hint of that, a little taste of that. I spoke to Travis Kelce a couple of weeks ago, and he said that loss in the Super Bowl is just sticks in their mind, everybody, and it left a bad taste because they didn't just lose. As you said, they got annihilated. They got it handed to them. So I think what Andy's using now is that psychological ploy of you guys, you were at the top of the mountain, and then you got knocked off in a big way. You got completely knocked off, and you have to get back there. And you haven't done anything. You haven't proven anything. And the big thing for the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be the offensive line. You got a whole revamped offensive line with 3 guys who've never played in the NFL. 3 guys up there protecting, blocking for Patrick Mahomes. And we saw, as great as he is, as incredible, as athletic, as phenomenal, as talented as Patrick Mahomes is, when he was missing his bookend tackles in the Super Bowl, he was ordinary. He was Carson Wentz in September. That's what he looked like with nobody up front. And that's going to be a huge thing, because if they can't get their offensive line in order, I don't care how talented Patrick Mahomes is, they're going to have some struggles early on. But I look for the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, again, to be there, potentially a rematch of the AFC Championship game, and whoever gets home field, whoever gets the number 1 seed can go this year.
I'll stick to the NFC East here now, Rob. I really don't like how Joe Judge runs the Giants. I've been pretty vocal about it. I think it's a high school. He's trying to run it like he was quarterback at Lansdale Catholic. That's how I view it, and I just don't know if this is going to work long term. And Ray Rhodes and the players eventually tuned out, the whole us against the world mentality and, running these guys ragged. Like, people seem to forget they were only 6-10 last year. I know they had a good finish, but they weren't a good football team. Like, overall, what are your thoughts on Joe Judge?
He would have been a 6-10 division champion if the Eagles didn't tank the final game of the season, right? He was about to be a 6-10, right? I kind of, I look at what he does, and I think it's in a way refreshing because it's different and it's old school. But like you said, I don't believe that will last. So to be able to go out there and see some of the things like guys running gassers and everything else and what they're doing after practice or in practice and the fighting and all that stuff, it's different for today's NFL. It really is. We don't see that across the league. So he's coming in here with a different mindset, more of an old school, in your face, us against the world, and let's create this atmosphere here. He may have success for a year or two, but eventually I don't think that will last with today's modern player. It's a division that's winnable for the Giants, for the Washington football team, for the Cowboys if Dak is healthy. And if Dak isn't healthy, to me, they're the front runner. But if Dak isn't healthy and there's a Super Bowl MVP quarterback who's a number 3 on the Chicago Bears roster, if I'm Jerry Jones, I'm making that phone call, by the way. But that's just me.
All right. Last thing, Rob, and just an aside, that tanking game that the Eagles took part in Week 17, unbelievable. They couldn't win with the unstoppable Nate Sudfeld, according to the owner, Jeffrey Lurie. He didn't even get in the game against San Francisco this week, and I don't think they sat him to protect him either. Not a good thing for Nate Sudfeld, but again, I'm getting off course. Now you're down in Florida. You cover the entire National Football League, and that's a pretty good drive from just outside Tampa up north in the state. Do you have a Tim Tebow week that you're going up to Jacksonville to check on the Jags? Yeah, they kind of got that Lawrence kid at quarterback, but Tim Tebow's a tight end for him, Maaddi. Tell me you're going to Jacksonville.
Heck yeah. I did an event a couple of years ago in October 19 with Tim Tebow, and I know he gets a lot of criticism from some people out there, but I found him to be one of the most genuine human beings I've ever met in my life. So whether or not he can play football as a tight end is one thing. Who he is off the field, I think is just a phenomenal, spectacular person, human being, everything that he does. So I definitely, Jody, at some point will find my way to Jacksonville. It's like a 3.5 hour drive from where I am. I'm kind of lazy. I might hop on a plane and get there in an hour.
Yeah, I said on the show a couple of times, if I found out my daughter was going to be marrying Tim Tebow, I'd give him a bro hug. Couldn't be more excited. Tim, get on with the rest of your life. You can't play football like Jason Peter. Jason, get on with the rest of your life. You got a big life ahead of you. Don't be doing, well, again, off field. But I like getting off field every once in a while. We always love having you on, Rob Maaddi. Only 3 fridges. I'm kind of disappointed. I thought you were going with 4. What the hell do you need 3 fridges for?
Well, it's actually, in fairness, it's 2 fridges and one's just a standing freezer. My wife is a phenomenal cook in the kitchen, man. She's awesome. She gets her meats, her fish, and everything. We store it there. And then two of them are in the garage, and the other one's in the soon-to-be remodeled, brand new. Working the rest of my life, Jody and Jeff.
Get back to it. You've already got the caught-up shirt on, so you got to do some lifting. We know that's coming. Rob, we'll touch base again in a couple of weeks. Thanks for jumping on today, bud.
You guys are the best. Thank you.
Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press was the Eagle guy for years, doing both the Eagles and the Phillies, as he just mentioned. He gets out of town. The Phillies move in the first place. Well, as Jeff mentioned earlier in the show, they fell out of first place yesterday. Jeff was there. My wife was there. My daughter was there. I watched it on TV. I thought I was the baseball guy. How did I end up as the only guy not at the game yesterday? Anyway, we'll come back. We'll put a football bow on the show here on Birds 365 in just a sec.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.